Okay, now let's talk about Zoran Mamdani. So Zoran Mamdani has a mandate from the people to come into New York and to provide free buses, to subsidize education and social programs, especially in areas which have a lot of crime, and to, in general, improve the condition of New Yorkers. His proposal for this is to raise taxes for people making over $1 million a year and to really go hard against corporate and tax them hard to pay for this. All of this sounds pretty good, but I forgot to also add that he wants to also bring universal daycare for children 6 months to 5 years. I think he might be able to get that and get some programs which subsidize transportation and things like that. But I think that if Zoran Mandani, number one, if he thinks that he's going to just tax people who make over $1 million and then put heavy taxes on the corporate powers that live in New York, he's living in a fairy tale world. How is he going to do this? We know that not just in the US, but in New York and everywhere else, which is run by the banks, run by Wall Street, and run by finance, and run by lobbyists like AIPAC, there's no way these guys are just going to cede power to him. It's never been done before unless he has power. So we're looking at city council. City council is complex, and Mandani does not have an overall mandate. He got 45% of the votes in the run for the mayorship. That means he had less than 50% of the support of New Yorkers. And a lot of the people who support the other candidates are not for his so-called socialist scheme. And the question is, how is he going to fight them? They're going to be lobbied by corporate powers, by banks, and by Wall Street. So the only power that he could have is maybe from his donors. I hear that he's starting to ask for more money from his donors. Are his donors going to continue giving him money to match the billions that's going to be backing the capitalist machine in New York? I don't think so. Now, he does have a pretty strong populist following in New York and people who support him. But the question is, when he starts to struggle and getting these programs that he said he would bring in, and he starts to lose politically, where is there going to be outrage from the citizens to do what it takes to get those bills passed? And the only way I can see that happening is if labor unions and collective groups start going on strike and disrupting the system, maybe teachers and everything. I don't see that happening in New York because I don't see it happening in anywhere in the US. I don't see any group of people collectively coming together to force the government to pass legislation which provides more social safety networks and pumps more money into education, into healthcare and everything else. We've seen the countries on shutdown. People are on the verge of losing healthcare, and the citizens aren't taking any action. So what I'm saying is that the only weapon that Zoran Mandani would have to fight Wall Street and businesses in New York and people who make $1 million, $1 million is not much, and then even the people who are super billionaires like Bloomberg, Bezos, and those types of people who own businesses in New York, is to have a mass of people who are willing to protest, wreak havoc, and shut the city down if they don't get those things. And that's what true socialism is. And I don't see it in New York. New York is a complacent city. The United States is generally complacent, but it looks like the right-wing hillbillies are less complacent. They're getting more legislation passed from people like Marjorie Taylor Greene to pass things that they want because they know their constituency won't put them back in. But in New York, as is the case all over the country, Americans like to have what I would call icons. So Mamdani's an icon, somebody that they vote in and they think like Jesus Christ who came from the sky, he's going to make everything okay. Bernie Sanders, AOC, Obama. This is the same pattern that we're seeing now with Mamdani. He's going to come in and there's only going to be two things he does. Either when he starts getting lobbied and stuff and loses a few battles, he'll sit back and continue doing what guys like AOC do, just get fat off of money and pretend like he's a progressive socialist. And he might pass one or two things. I predict that he might get the free bus for New York. I think he might get that. And he might get universal daycare from 6 months to 5 years, because there's already universal daycare anyway, and there's also K to something in public schools. So he might get those two things. And most likely that will come from a redistribution of money that's already coming in from taxes from real estate, which is New York's main source of revenue. But I'll be goddamned if I would ever believe that he's going to tax people making more than $1 million and people who are making billions in New York. It won't happen. These people will kill to keep their power, and they don't need to kill. What they will do is pay off everybody in city council and the people that they've put in positions of power, such as the governor of New York, to make sure that doesn't happen. Now, the next thing I want to say is that even if all of the stuff that Mamdani says he wants to put through, he says he wants to put it through health and infrastructure for mental health and for community outlook in inner cities and in places where there's crime, and for daycare, which will help people. That's not going to solve the economic problem of New York or the economic problem of the United States, which is losing its manufacturing base and moving more towards a war economy, which spends a lot of its money to sustain countries like Ukraine and Israel, and also used for speculation to make the rich richer. So even if you have free daycare and you have mental health interventions in inner cities and where people are poor or where middle class people are struggling, it's going to be like just like a drop of water, a desert. It's not going to solve the problem, because the problem in New York, as well as the problem in the US, is systemic. Once again, we are a war economy in which we've built up a $38 trillion deficit, most of it which it goes to the Pentagon, and it can't be accounted for. And I live in America, and I have to now go to dollar stores to shop. And I see most middle class Americans going to the dollar store to shop for food that's in cans, no vegetables, no good meats, because the pinch is coming more and more on Americans, because our tax money is being used to and funded for the war industry and for tax breaks for the rich. And a lot of the money that's being generated in America is not any longer from manufacturing or agriculture or things that allow for sustainability. I don't know where it's going other than towards war and into the pocket and banks of speculators like Bezos, people who create what's his name, Elon Musk, who apparently is going to be paid $1 trillion for his salary or something like that, some dividends he's going to get. So the problem that's in New York and that's in America now is systemic and will only be changed. Once it's changed, we don't need to worry about social safety nets. The income, the revenue in America needs to be pushed into schools, roads, high-speed trains, technology, development, production. And we also have to figure out a way to get our production back from China. You know, American labor is too expensive. So the country needs to also become a little bit more austere. I mean, we have, how many people have Netflix, HBO, Prime Video, everything, and is paying like $150 for all these different channels, have flat screen TVs that are worth $600, $700. So we need to become more austere and consume less. But nobody wants to hear that. They think they can just put somebody in with a nice smile, with nice teeth, and a pretty wife who's an artist. I'm talking about Mamdani. And with their aspirational words, things will change. I'm going to end with this. Things will not change until Americans wake up and realize that the economic system needs to change, in which the revenue from this country is mobilized towards well-being and sustainable production.